So I bought myself some Pogs, and I think what I was trying to do was rekindle the magic of buying these things as a kid. I used to play with them with my friends, I used to collect them. You throw a plastic slammer at them, and the ones that flip over you win. I can't recreate the magic of what it felt like having these as a kid. I just can't do it. And that's the thing about nostalgia. These haven't changed, but I have. So how does a game like Return to Monkey Island take you all the way back? Can it do it? Can nostalgia really drive a game like this? The answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it does capture the feeling of playing The Secret of Monkey Island, but it doesn't do it by trying to make you feel like you did then. It takes you back there as you are now. I'm a different person now when I first bought these Pogs back in 1997 or whenever it was. And Guybrush in Return to Monkey Island, he's a different person too. He returns to Melee Island and it's almost decrepit and run down, and it's not quite how he remembered it. But that's what it is. That's the great thing about this game, is that in 1991, I was Guybrush then. I was the guy that wanted to be a swashbuckling pirate and go on an adventure. In Return to Monkey Island, Guybrush is now a dad, and he's trying to explain to his kids about this brilliant adventure he went on. I've had that same conversation myself about Monkey Island. When he returns to Monkey Island, everyone is strange and different. The Guybrush who returns to Monkey Island is more of a vector from the player than you could ever hope for him to be. He's a bit of a fish out of water in this strange world. Wandering around the island, looking at everything and just reminiscing about the past. Looking at Stan's shipyard that's been wrecked by time. Meeting Wally again, who's actually doing alright for himself. Finding the pirate leaders who've been left behind by time and the new pirate leaders who are strange and different. It's all that feeling of getting older and wanting to return to something that's comforting. Because what does Guybrush want? He wants the secret. What do we want as the player? We want the secret too. He meets Cobb with it still got his loom badge and literally goes yes when he gets him to say the line.
Oh, I'm so sick of pirates asking me about loom. Get lost.
The guys who made this game know what they're doing. They know who their market is, and beyond this new fresh veneer of art style that they've introduced to the game, it's very much for the players who played it back in the day. But nostalgia isn't enough to make a game great. This game is brilliant. This is point and click perfection. When Ron Gilbert first started making adventure games, he looked at Sierra Games and he knew that there was a lot of issues with frustration and the not understanding what the protagonist's goal was and not understanding what you were supposed to be doing at any given time and just being lost and dead ends and all those kind of things. I feel like this time he's been a lot more self-reflective with his own games. I feel like he's played Monkey Island, Secret of Monkey Island and all the other Monkey Islands, and decided that the way to do things would not be to frustrate the player in any way at all. Return to Monkey Island does a lot of the basics impeccably. First of all, it introduces a hint system. Now, any adventure gamer, any point and click fan probably would scoff at the idea of a hint system and wouldn't want to use it. But if the choice is between I'm frustrated and I can't get past a certain point and I'm going to go on the internet and find the answer anyway, a subtle hint that points you in the right direction is preferable because at least it's in-game. Did I use the hint system? Yes. Did I feel like I cheated myself afterwards? No, I tell you what I did feel. I felt like, do you know what, thank you for putting that in there so that I don't have to spend my whole time wandering around looking for a pepper pot that I didn't think was there because the guy said it wasn't there before, said it was empty before. I just assumed it wasn't there now. That's fine. When I did use the hint system, it was because I'd missed an object or I'd forgotten that I had an item in my inventory, and it just made the game more fun. On top of that, there's a to-do list. I mean, what an obvious thing to put in an adventure game, but adventure games rely on dialogue and talking to other characters. So if you want to know what your task is, a good adventure game would put it in the dialogue option. A bad adventure game would tell you once or not tell you at all what your quest was, and then would expect you to figure it out. It's impressive that they actually put a to-do list in there. I can turn the game off, I can go do other stuff, and I can come back. My senile old brain will be able to look at that to-do list and recall where I was up to. There's also an easy mode, which, again, you might scoff at if you're a big hardcore adventure gamer, but what better way to introduce this game to a younger generation than having a difficulty mode? It was in the original games anyway, so it's nothing new. There's also a dialogue recap system where you can, if you miss something in dialogue, you can skip back and go through it again. That is just genius. It's so simple. But the simple things in these adventure games are what make them playable. The biggest problem with any adventure game is frustration, and what I feel like what they've done with this game is really try and make it so that frustration doesn't play a part anymore. However, you could have all these quality of life features, but there's one thing that you can't just buy, and you can't get that easily with any game, never mind point-and-click adventure games, and that is story and writing. I mean, honestly, the dialogue in this game is brilliant. Every moment of the game is entertaining, and listening to the characters and the witty, biting one-liners from Guybrush and all the other characters in the game just come at you with different voices and different ways of thinking, and there's not a moment where you're thinking, oh, this character is terrible, I'm going to talk to somebody else. I actually made a list of the number of times I was laughed during the game, because I thought, have they still got it in terms of the humour? The reality is I was just ticking, and I lost count in the end. Some of it was reflective towards previous games, some of it was nostalgic towards previous games, some of it was just witty, biting dialogue. And with Ron Gilbert, Dave Grossman, and all those guys that make the Monkey Island games, has got some absolute amazing writers in it. And you look back at that heyday, and that's where they all went. I'm really pleased to say that those people have not lost it. They've still got it. It feels like it's written by people who are just geniuses at creating drama and dialogue and humour all at the same time. The story itself is a really simple one. Guybrush wants to find the secret, and I talked about Guybrush being a vector for the player, the much older player that's playing now. And it's harking back to that time when we were kids, and what do we remember? We remember wanting to find the secret of Monkey Island. And Guybrush is on an absolute mission. The guy is possessed with this mission, to the point where he will destroy things, he will ruin people's lives, nothing is standing in this guy's way.
Another resource has given its all in support of my personal goals. It's what nature is for.
It's a great quest because we all want the same thing. Everyone playing this is like, I need to find the secret of Monkey Island. If we're going to find the secret of Monkey Island, I want to know what it is. The destruction that he leaves in his wake is actually referenced in the game as well, and it's so funny watching all the different people that he's harmed or hurt or ignored or destroyed in his quest. It's just brilliant, and I think it mirrors how I don't care about your mop tree, okay? I need to know what the secret is.
Not to mention the trail of destruction you've left in your wake.
Oh, nonsense. Give me 12 examples.
There's lots of new characters to go along with all the returning characters. So if you remember like Carla, the Swordmaster, and you remember Voodoo Lady and Stan and Elaine and Murray, they're all there and they sound exactly the same as you remember them. Stan is brilliant in this game. He probably steals the show in terms of the old characters, and he's built a lot more into the puzzle element of it, and he gets involved more a little bit in this game, and it's great to see Stan a little bit more of a main character. The new characters are also brilliant. The character that I enjoy the most though returning is Elaine. I remember Elaine being quite a stern character in some of the later games, and Guybrush being a little bit more of the, oh, my lovey-wovey cuddly-duddly type person. And now that they're married, you can sort of tell that the creators didn't really want to make too much of that. What they've done is made Elaine, they've given her own problems to deal with in this game. And she just sort of like balances off the bonkers nature of Guybrush, who's on this silly quest to find something that probably doesn't matter. So you got Guybrush on the one hand, who's just on a crazy childish quest to reclaim his childhood, and you've got his wife, who's more on a quest to like save people's lives. I really like Elaine in this game. I think she's brilliant. We've got new antagonists in Captain Madison and her new pirate leaders. It makes a lot of sense, and I really like that character of Captain Madison because it's very similar to Guybrush. She's got her agenda, and she plays off really nicely with LeChuck, who returns in this game with a brand new voice actor who does a really good job actually.
What's your name, Swabby?
The start of the game follows a very similar formula to the first two Monkey Island games, where you start on Melee Island, you have to find a crew. It takes a little bit of a twist in the sense that no one wants to be on Guybrush's crew anymore. He's that out of date. So he has to stow away aboard LeChuck's ship. And it's just a nice change of pace, and what it does is it gets you face to face with LeChuck. Very much in the previous games he was always in a cutaway, or you'd meet up with him at the end, or like in Monkey Island 2 where you'd have another antagonist to deal with first. But here you get face to face with LeChuck a lot more. It really brings its character out a little bit more. You get to read his diary and you get to find out how he deals with his crew. There is a little bit of repetition where you do this thing where you disguise yourself as one of the crew, and that's great, but and then it does that again. He makes you go back again and disguise yourself as a different member of the crew, and I thought there's a couple of times where there was a little bit of backtracking to environments. I don't know if that was a budget thing. I talked a little bit about the returning characters. I mean, you've got Otis who returns, you've got Murray, you've got Carla the Swordmaster. The only one that I think is slightly underwritten is Murray, because in this game he just feels like he's full-on maniacal, and he doesn't have that little bit of innocence and a little bit of childish humour that he had in Curse of Monkey Island. Possibly because it's not a Ron Gilbert character, so he maybe didn't quite understand it as well as the characters he wrote. He is, however, used in quite a few puzzles. One really good puzzle where you have to write LeChuck's theme tune using skulls, but I just feel like his character was a tiny bit more maniacal than it used to be.
That's promising.
All this would be completely pointless if the game's puzzles were terrible, because that's what an adventure game is. It's a puzzle game at the end of the day. The logic of every puzzle is impeccable. And now you can have hint systems, but if you go through the hint system and go, what, I'm supposed to use a rubber chicken with a cat and then make some bacon out of a duck pond, I wasn't ever going to get that. If you do use the hint system, you'll probably find that you'll go, obviously it's just right between being not too simple and just being a little bit batty. If you listen to characters, they give you clues, which is, again, that's better than a hint system. That's where you want your hints to come from. This context-based hotspot system that they've got, where instead of saying look, pull, push, you don't do that. You literally just click on the button and it tells you what Guybrush is going to do. You can either use the object or look at the object. Might make things a little bit too simple, but because the game opens up so much later on, it actually doesn't, because there's so much to do and so much to look at. There's a little bit of hunting for inventory items, and if you don't pick up an object, you'll end up not being able to solve the puzzle later on. But again, you've got that hint system to fall back on if you really need it. There's an easy mode and there's a hard mode, and it seems like the easy mode, from the people I spoke to who played the easy mode, just removes a few steps in the puzzles. I'm going to play it again on easy mode as well, just to see the difference. Apparently there's also alternate endings, so there's choices that Guybrush can make. Didn't know this game was so much like Silent Hill 2, that you can actually result in a different ending. I was so focused on finding the secret that I had no idea that there was other choices that could be made, but apparently there is, so you can get different endings and a slightly different coda after the end credits as well. In terms of difficulty, I think the game does a really, really good job of ramping up the difficulty later in the game. For instance, at the start of the game, you have to make an object, and you can use different inventory objects to make that object. Later on in the game, that doesn't happen as much, and the game expands. You could have to get one item on one island, talk to another character on another island, very much like Monkey Island 2, but because it's ramped up slowly, and the game has stayed quite contained in terms of like where you have to explore early on, that once you get to that point, you're very much in the groove of what kind of logic the game has in terms of its puzzles. There's also a couple of really great features that have been added to this game. One is the achievement system, which, as I played through, I really didn't bother too much with the achievement system, but the one I did find, where you have to slowly get a fish to walk across a restaurant by going in and out. Every time you go in, the fish is moved ever so slightly, so if you go in and out lots of times, you can help the fish escape. So there's a bit of replayability. I'm looking forward to going back and playing this game again and finding all those secrets. There's also trivia cards that you can pick up throughout the game, which ask you questions, trivia questions about the game and previous games. So I think that's a second playthrough sort of job. Do some of those things and look for those little secrets and find all the little nooks and crannies that this game has to offer. Let's talk about the art style. Why people were so annoyed about the art style, I do not know. I can't quite fathom how you'd be unhappy with a new Ron Gilbert, Dave Grossman Monkey Island game. The art style itself is very different. It's very modern. It almost mirrors how like Guybrush feels at the start of the game, where he sort of feels like a bit of an old school character in a modern scenario. I really like it, but why did Guybrush's nose have to look like a squeezed turnip? Why did it have to look like he'd been on the run for too long? I don't know, but that's how he looks. The backgrounds are alive with movement and things are going on. The colours and the colour palette that they've used really bring back the original games. The art style might be completely different, but the colour palette itself looks incredible. There's lots of close-ups as well. There's lots of close-ups and zoom when characters pass things to each other, which really add depth and flavour and allow you to see things a little bit closer up. There's no more pixel hunting doesn't need to be a thing anymore. Everything should be really clear and vivid, and if you need to see something close up, you can do, even if it's like just for a joke, which is it is at the start. In terms of sound design, I mean, the game sounds like a Monkey Island game. You know, when that opening music kicks in, you know, it just gives you goosebumps. The music just fits. Monkey Island games have always had the best music. They've always had the best ambience as well. You know, just the way it feels and the way the environment feels. And this game just nails that perfectly. I'm still blown away by how impressive the iMuse system is. It's so impressive that you don't even notice it unless someone tells you about it. When you move from one location to another, the music seamlessly blends together. Now, this may happen on lots of new games, but this game's been doing it since like 1992.
I don't need you or your money. I can do this on my own.
I want to talk about the voice acting. The voice acting of every character in this game is spot on. They've brought back many of the returning voice actors that were in the previous games, including Stan and Elaine. The LeChuck voice actor has changed. Murray is back. Carla the Swordmaster. These are all returning voice actors. Voodoo Lady, all back, all brilliant, all the way you remember them. So I guess if I was going to return to Monkey Island a rating, it would be like 20 rubber chickens with pulleys in the middle out of 10. It's that good. It's point and click perfection. It is. And what I'm most pleased about is the fact that Guybrush at the start of the game is now a dad. The way it retcons the original ending of LeChuck's revenge really well and makes it a real positive. Instead of it being Guybrush and LeChuck, it's Guybrush and his kid. And he sits on the park bench and he's explaining this amazing adventure he once went on. And I just feel like Guybrush now. I just want to tell my kids, and sit down and say, do you know what? There's this great adventure. Return to Monkey Island is my game of the year, my game of probably the last 10 years. It is that good. I love every minute of it, and I can't wait to just go and play it again.